everyone. My name is Eliza Dempsey.
And I'm Erin Mundy.
And we're focusing on warm-up activities for our project.
All right, let's go. Why should we have a warm-up? Warm-ups are important to have because it helps build relationships with students. It connects previous lessons to the current or future lessons. It allows students to review content, and what I think is maybe most important, it helps students move their focus to language learning from their other classes or other activities they've had throughout their day. What makes a good warm-up? A good warm-up should be relatively quick, easy to understand, level and age appropriate, and of course related to language learning.
So the first warm-up activity that we decided to focus on or choose was object identification and description, or I would say in the students' terms, it would be, what is this thing? So what it does is it utilizes achievement and compensatory strategies. The task of the warm-up is that students are asked to identify an unfamiliar object, something that is not usually taught in the language classroom, but does relate to the unit at hand or previous one. And they have to try and say what it is. What I really like about this is that it forces the students to get creative with language and take risks in the target language, and especially allows them to experiment with it and with what they know from their own personal experiences, their experiences in the language, and their ability to create language for it. And some of the ways that this creativity can manifest are in these different strategies and approaches. So they can do circumlocution, which is where they describe the action or things function or characteristics. For example, if the teacher has a blow dryer up on the board, a possible student response could be, that thing that makes your hair hot, or it's a machine that blows air. All of which are, describing it, and students are using what they know about the object in the target language to be able to describe it. Another way a student can approach this is approximation, which is the use of a single general word, which is not quite correct, but shares some semantic features. For example, if you show a truck that appears to be stuck, they can say stop in the mud instead of stuck. They say heating in the oven instead of baking. Or if they see a picture of a dinosaur and they say it's a lizard. It's not quite right, but in the same department. Another one is they use all-purpose words. When the student isn't quite sure what word to use, they might use things like thing or stuff to represent the unknown word. So you might show a picture of a car accident, and they might say it's the things that happen when two things crash into each other. Or if they see a cake on the board, they can say it's the thing you make when you put eggs and stuff into a bowl and you bake it and you have it on your birthday. Then it's a cake. They can also do word coinage, which is making up a new word. So if they see a balloon on the board and they don't know what balloon is in the target language, they might call it an air ball. Or they see a candle and they say a little firelight. Or an airplane might be a flying machine. They can also use nonverbal ways to describe the item. For example, if you have somebody who's washing dishes, they might have their hand out in front of them and the other hand going around as if they're washing the dishes, knowing that they understand what is being portrayed there and making that connection. They can also do literal translation. So when they're describing it, they might literally translate word for word. So they might say libro instead of book, or say la mesa instead of the table. They can also foreignizing the word, basically making the word in L1 sound like the unknown word in the target language. So it could be la tabla for table, and when the real word is mesa, or o gato for cat, but the real word is o gato. And of course, code switching. Learner uses the L1 term while speaking in the target language. So if they show Amber at the Apple store, the student might say, Amber compró the computer at the loja de Apple. They can appeal for assistance, which they might, in the middle of their trying to describe it, be like, oh, what is this specific part called? So they can try and describe it better. Or they might say, how do you say this? And also, of course, the use of fillers or hesitation devices, like,
Another fun warm-up activity that in my experience, both adults and kids like is hangman. If your students are unfamiliar with hangman, you can explain it as learners try to guess the word before the teacher completes a drawing of a person, usually a stick figure. And depending on the age of your students, you might want to not call it hangman, but still use the general premise of drawing a person. Students will use deductive skills of understanding language patterns to guess the incomplete word on the board. And this activity is particularly great for encouraging students to think about spelling or their vocabulary words that they may have recently learned. Our last warm-up activity is an idiom of the day. And this was probably going to be used for higher level students because idioms are difficult, even if they're in your own language sometimes. But this will utilize common English idioms or whatever language you're teaching. The learners can try to guess the literal and the idiomatic meaning of a common English idiom in this case. And this teaches valuable cultural information to the learners. So in the example, we could see one for cat got your tongue. I mean, we have the picture of the cat literally grabbing someone's tongue, but we can teach that it means, don't you have anything to say? Can't you speak? Etc. And these are our references and additional resources. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.